do things in this world and you pray to that spirit. But that's like God. They just replace God with the spirits, these free spirits that have reached this particular stage. The other branch, which is the more common branch of Buddhism today, they have turned Buddha into a god and they just worship Buddha. That's the more common version. And you have other religions like the Jainism. They also don't have a god. But similarly, all of these that deny it, they also elevate other aspects of Allah's creation, whether it be the souls of the liberated beings, as becoming immortal and omniscient and omnipotent, etc. They have turned these actually into God. They've given God's attributes to some of his creation. People like Pharaoh, who said to Musa when he called him to the belief in Allah, Ana Rabbukumul A'la, I am your Lord Most High. This is an example. He is denying the existence of a Lord. Told Haman, listen, build this big old ladder for me. Let me go up and have a look at, Musa's God. I don't believe there's any God up there. Anyway, right? I am your Lord Most High. This is an example of denial of God's existence. You have philosophers, people like Jean-Paul Sartre and Hume and others, also in the history of Western thought, philosophical thought, who denied God's existence. Marxism, Marxist-Leninism, which is communism, this is also a system which elevated the denial of God to a state religion. Prior to this, denial of God's existence remained as the belief of a few. And this is why when we look into the Quran, and the Quran addresses issues of belief in Allah, very few verses actually address the concept of those who deny God's existence altogether. They always go from, you believe in God in this respect, well, this is how you should believe in God in all respects. Right? As Allah said in the Quran, وَلَئِن سَأَلْتَهُمْ مَنْ خَلَقَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ لَيَقُولَنَّ اللَّهِ. If you ask them who created the heavens and the earth, they'll say Allah. But they have errors in this belief in Allah. Whereas there are few verses in the Quran where Allah addresses those who actually don't believe in God at all, because these have always been a minority in human existence. Of course, as I said, with this 20th century, it was elevated to state religion. In Russia, in China, and elsewhere, communism, the disbelief in God's existence, became a part of the religion of the state. I didn't call it religion, but in fact it became their religion. And what happened is that though this was officially propagated, the mass of the people still believed in God. So they were still a minority. Though it became, as I said, state religion officially, so people, if they wanted to graduate from school or they wanted to get certain posts, they had to externally repeat these claims that God doesn't exist. Internally, they didn't really believe it. And that's why when these systems fell, you found people rushing back to religion. Because now there was no pressure on them, they were free. They left those beliefs because it was only an external thing. And in any case, what we could point out is that even those people who deny God's existence, if you actually pin them down, they do have gods that they worship. They do. Because everybody has to have a God. It is their explanation for things. You find it there. If you go and you ask that individual who's an atheist, okay, you don't believe there's a God. Now, you are a successful businessman. However, such and such a person, who was your classmate, who came from a similar background as you, who graduated with all the different things, he is an utter failure. Why? Utter failure, why? What does he say? My good luck. His bad luck. And if you go and you pin him down, to the various events which are taking place in his day or her day, you will find them when you ask them, what about this? They say, good luck. What about that? Bad luck. What about this? Good luck. What about that? Bad luck. So you find they're saying bad luck and good luck controls the whole of their life in the end. And the other term which they use instead of luck, they say fortune. My good fortune. Now the term fortune, right, comes from the Greek term Fortuna, which is the name of the goddess of good and bad luck. Fortuna. So that's their god, fortune. The ancient Greek goddess. Of course, when we assign the powers of God to a blind force like fortune and luck, what this does is it eliminates the requirements of worship. Right? Now if it's a personal God who has consciousness, etc., then you have to deal with, well, what does God want from me? But now when you look at it as a blind force, then you don't have to deal with that. So really it's just an escape from dealing with the obligations of belief in God. It's just a substitute. So don't let them fool you into thinking they don't have a God. They do have gods, every last one of them. Now, the other area of shirk is shirk in al-asma wa sifat, in Allah's names and attributes. This also occurs in two ways. One which we call shirk by humanization, and the other which we call shirk by deification. By deification, those of you who may have difficulty reading that word in English, please don't pronounce it as defecation, right? Because that has a whole different meaning altogether. Right? It's deification, which means making something or someone a god. All right? So, humanization. What this refers to is making God like his creation. That God has a form. Whether it is a human form or an animal form or whatever form, this is, in general, we can call it shirk by humanization. Why? Because people, generally speaking, represent God in human form. Human beings looked at as being the highest stage of creation, then they more commonly represent God in their own form. And of course, historically speaking, this is what Christianity has portrayed. When they promote the idea that Jesus was God, right? And they have their paintings, Michelangelo's painting in the Sistine Chapel, where he spent so many months and years on his back painting this picture, the famous picture you see of this man reaching down and the other man reaching up, and there's like their fingers are like this, and this representing God giving the spark of life to Adam. Of course, when they represent God, he is represented as a European, with a big long white beard, right? And in this way, when they promote this to be the understanding of God in the rest of the non-European world, then they are subtly, putting in the people's minds, subliminally promoting to them that we, Europeans, are closer to God. We are God-like. And this creates in the minds of the non-Europeans a desire to look like a European. So you'll find them doing all kinds of things, whether it's skin whiteners or it's, cutting the slits out of your eyes, or, people into this whole practice of trying